So I've been living in the UAE for just over a year now, and one of the popular dinner topic conversations always revolves around real estate investing. Cities like Dubai and Abu Dhabi are quickly becoming the London and the New York of the Middle East, and opportunities are prevalent here. The real estate market is booming and lots of people are looking to get in on the action. However, as an expat, you've got lots to think about. It's not just as simple as getting involved on the local action. In this video, I'm going to go through the different considerations that you should have as an expat. Should you be investing locally? Should you be investing abroad? What are the things that you need to look out for? All of that and much more. And by the end of the video, you should have a clear idea about your real estate investing strategy. Before we start talking about specific investment strategies, one of the key things when you're investing is to make sure that you're avoiding a scam. And the best way to do that is to make sure that whichever method that you're buying real estate through, make sure that it is keenly regulated by a local regulator. The UAE is made up of 7 emirates, and the 2 principal financial regulators are the DIFC and ADGM in Abu Dhabi. It is possible to buy real estate directly, and we will go through those options, but if you are buying through a company or through somebody, it's essential that you check that these guys are regulated, and if possible, try and get reference checks locally. Phone people if you need to phone people, and make sure you get those checks done. The last thing you want with any investment is that it goes to zero without even having got started because you've fallen prey to a scam. And it happens a lot more often than you think. And it's very, very easy to avoid it if you just put in some basic homework before you get started. So if you're being offered an investment opportunity, one of the concrete questions that you can ask is, who are you regulated by? And if they say that they're regulated by the DIFC or ADGM, then go that one step further and search the register. There are publicly available registers that you can search, and make sure that these guys do come up on the register and that you don't just take their word for it. Now, of course, you can buy real estate directly, and that is not a regulated activity. But again, you just need to make sure that you're dealing with the right sorts of people when you're doing that. So one of the first questions that you need to be asking yourself when you're investing in real estate as an expat is, where do you actually want the property that you're investing in to be located? Is it that you want it to be located in the UAE, or do you want it to be abroad, perhaps in a market that you know better? Now, the answer to this is not as simple as, I'm more bullish on the UAE, therefore I'm going to invest in the UAE. There is one huge factor that you need to take into consideration, which is something called currency risk. What currency risk means, if for example you are earning in AED, i.e. the local dirham currency, and you're investing abroad, for example in the UK or the US, then you are going to have to convert your earned money into another currency, and you will do that at a particular rate. Once you then sell that investment or you sell that property, just remember that you are going to have to convert back from GBP, for example, back into your currency. And if the exchange rates have worked against you, even though you might have made a profit on the actual property itself, you might end up making a loss, or the currency risk could mean that it eats into your return. In addition to that, you might also find that investing abroad or investing locally is harder because of the different banking setups that you've got. For instance, if you're in the UAE but you're still earning money in the UK in a UK bank account, it's going to be practically quite difficult for you to be transferring large amounts of money into the UAE and vice versa. It's not impossible, but it is a factor that you should definitely consider when you're investing in real estate. Now, the 2 certainties in life are death and taxes are something that you also need to factor in when you're investing in real estate. Even though the UAE is for now largely a tax-free jurisdiction, there might be tax implications of you investing in real estate, particularly if you are choosing to invest abroad. If you're investing abroad, it is definitely worth getting specialist tax advice to make sure that a specialist has run through your situation and helped you to understand what the tax implications are, for example, when you sell the property or when you take income from the property, especially if you are going to then remit that money from the abroad location back to the UAE. And similarly, even if you're investing in the UAE, you shouldn't assume that everything's going to be tax-free. For instance, if you in, I don't know, 5 years or 10 years are moving back to your home country, you might find that some taxes might apply once you sell the property here and you're looking to remit that money back to your home country. It is worth just booking in some time and paying for that time with a tax advisor who understands your particular circumstances. And the reason for that is because taxes can eat into your returns in a way that you didn't really foresee at the time that you made the investment. So it's best to get ahead of that so you understand the full picture. So in summary, you need to consider currency risk, you need to consider taxes, and you also need to consider where the money is finally going to end up, because you may end up with some exchange issues in the process. So let's assume now that you've decided that you want to invest in global property from the UAE. What options do you have before you? Well, by far the easiest option to get exposure to real estate abroad is by looking at the public markets. And generally, the public markets are a very, very easy way to get exposure to pretty much anything from the comfort of your bedroom. So if you're looking at the public markets, the first angle that you can look to get exposure to real estate is by looking at companies that are also exposed to real estate. So what I mean by this is, let's say, for example, you're looking at the UK, you would then scour the public markets, for example, developers in the UK. There is, for example, a company called the Watkin Jones Group, who are a developer in the UK, and you might simply choose to buy stocks in Watkin Jones Group in order to give you exposure to the UK real estate market without really worrying too much more about doing any kind of direct investing. Similarly, what you can also do is look to the public markets for something called REITs, R-E-I-T-S, which stands for Real Estate Investment Trusts. These are publicly listed vehicles which directly own properties themselves. So you can buy these REITs on the public markets and get exposure to a property portfolio without doing any direct investing yourself. At the moment, you can get yields of around 6 to 8% in these REITs. So it is a pretty healthy return without you having to do very much work at all. You will want to check the debt ratio of these REITs. Most scholars allow a 33% debt to asset ratio or a debt to market cap ratio when you're investing in these REITs. Overall, the world of REITs is pretty big, and you will have to do some research if you do want to go down this route, and this isn't the platform for that. But if you do want property exposure globally and you want to do it in a very, very hands-off way, then the public markets, and in particular REITs, I would say, are a fantastic way of doing that. The other way of getting exposure to property abroad from the UAE is to look at private companies. So we talked about the public markets, and now we're talking about accessing it through private companies. The first thing to check here, as we said before, big warning label, is that you must make sure that the private companies that you are going through are regulated by a competent authority. For example, our own platform, Curate Capital, which is authorized and regulated by the FCA in the UK, does offer real estate investing into different funds that you can have exposure to. But there are more players out there. You've got crowdfunding platforms which will offer you an online, easy way to get exposure to a property, where you can buy a share of a property that you can see. You'll be able to see the address, you'll be able to see pictures, and you can actually buy ownership, fractional ownership within that property. So there are ways to get exposure to properties, again, in a pretty easy way compared to buying real estate yourself. I'm going to put a link in the description where there's a directory of these kinds of platforms where you can access real estate investing abroad through private companies. As well as the safety and regulation aspect, it is also crucial that you do your diligence on the Sharia aspect of the platform that you're going through. If you're in any doubt, you can always message them directly and make sure that they are indeed Sharia compliant. The key thing to watch out for is to make sure that there is no conventional debt inserted into any of their structures. And if you have any doubts at all, it is best to stay away, or at least ask a scholar who can help to guide you. When you're deciding to invest in real estate, the key thing is to actually understand your own goals. For example, if you're seeking double-digit returns, you are not going to achieve that simply by buying a rental property. And on the converse, if you're quite defensive and all you're looking for is income around the 6 to 8% mark, you should avoid buying doing more risky things like property development. Now, one of the very popular ways of investing in real estate is, of course, to just buy the property yourself. And there are multiple advantages to just buying real estate directly. You control all aspects of the deal. You can control who your tenants are. You can take all the gains without any middleman, and multiple other advantages of simply buying the asset yourself. But it does come with its downsides, and there is a reason why people go for the hands-off approach. Namely, many people don't like the hassle of having to manage a property, having to make repairs, for example, when a tenant leaves, or being called up by your tenant at 2 a.m. because the boiler has broken. This method does also require more capital because you will have to buy the entire asset, as opposed to the other routes that we talked about where you can take fractional ownership. If you do want to go down this route of direct real estate investing, I think it only really makes sense if you've got a solid setup in the country that you're choosing to buy real estate. So for example, if it's your home country where you've got a local bank account, you understand the local regulations, you know solicitors who can help you get through the deal, then great. I think it makes a lot more sense in that instance. But do make sure that you're scientific about your returns. Factor in all of the costs that you're going to have to take into consideration, such as the legal costs and all the other costs that are associated with buying a property and selling a property. Now, many people have got stories to tell about investing in the UAE real estate market, and I'm sure you've heard many of them as well. Whether it was buying off-plan properties in the Palm back in the day, or whether it was losing significant amounts of money in Dubai, nearly everyone has got a story when it comes to UAE real estate. And this can come as quite a surprise for people who don't have experience of the UAE real estate market, because they're very used to places like the US and the UK where real estate is safe as houses. It's pretty much slow and steady, and it nearly always rises over a period of time, and you very, very rarely, if ever, have significant drops in the real estate market. Now, the reasons for this are many, but things do seem to be changing. Historically, Dubai has not enjoyed the reputation of somewhere that is tried and tested because it's simply so new. But as the years go by, Dubai is proving itself to be increasingly mature, and it's standing the test of time through significant black swan events, the most recent of which being COVID, and the one before that being the 2008 financial crisis. Of course, Dubai has come out on the other side of both of those, but within those periods, the market massively marked down real estate in Dubai because it thought that it would not recover. And the fact that Dubai has recovered several times now means that many commentators are saying that Dubai real estate is now in a much more mature place, and we will not see the significant drops that we've seen in the past. And if you compare that to traditional markets like the US and the UK, whose economies are very much tried and tested, they've been around for a long, long time, you do not see those big drops in the market. The local mood, I would say, is very positive. People here are experiencing more and more people coming in as expats. They're seeing a much more mature job market, and I'm personally seeing a lot of families who are looking to just stay here for the long term. All of that means a growing population, and growing population means that we need more and more real estate, and those are good conditions for a real estate market and the prices associated with properties to continue to rise. And interestingly enough, even though many people perceive Dubai to be expensive, on this list of property prices, you can see that Dubai is actually 38th in the list, and compare that to the UK, which is 13th, and compare that to Hong Kong, which is 1st. That is important context when it comes to investing in Dubai real estate, because if you look at the wider conditions that I just mentioned around more and more people coming here, the population growing, and the fact that Dubai is 38th on the list of property prices, that does indicate that there is some room to grow when it comes to the property prices, and perhaps we're not in the bubble that many people are predicting that we are. The other big factor in the UAE real estate market is that buying property comes with other perks that people attribute value to. So for instance, if you are buying property here at the 2 million dirham mark, then you are eligible to have a golden visa. And in fact, the government actually recently scrapped the condition that you need to put down a 50% down payment in order to be eligible for this golden visa. So that means that people can now come here, buy an off-plan property at the 2 million plus mark, and apply for their golden visa and sort out their residency in the UAE, as well as having sorted out their property. So all in all, it's a pretty attractive gig to be investing in Dubai if the circumstances suit you. The golden visa gives people a lot more stability. It's a 10-year visa, which is not linked to your employment. Traditionally, people come here on a 2-year visa that is linked to their employment. So as soon as they leave their employment, they have to either leave or find a new job. The golden visa removes that dependency. So you can see why it's very attractive for people who are looking to set up here long term, or even for people who simply want the option to be able to reside here as well as in other places. Anecdotally, I know lots of people who have bought property here not just because of the golden visa, but because of the fact that the golden visa, added to the fact that they can get a property here, makes it a very, very compelling package. And you can see why. So clearly the ingredients of investing in UAE real estate are quite attractive. There's room to grow on the prices, in my opinion. There's perks that you can get, such as the golden visa, and it is a fantastic destination to be able to say that you own property. So let's look at how you can get exposure to the UAE real estate market. So the simplest way to get exposure to the UAE real estate market is again to look at the public markets. The UAE has had a number of high profile public listings, most recently Spinneys, which is a well-known supermarket in the UAE, and you would not rule out more high profile listings here in the UAE. Now, I'mar, one of the big developers, is a publicly listed company, and as long as you've got the right setup here in the UAE, you can buy stocks in I'mar, which is a major developer, probably the best reputation as well for developers locally. Additionally, you can also look at REITs, just as we mentioned when it comes to the global markets as well. There are a couple of well-known REITs, such as the Emirates REIT and the ENBD REIT. And you should do your own research in terms of the track record and the payouts and all of those things when it comes to these REITs. But these are things that you can buy on the public markets without doing too much work. Emirates REIT, for example, owns the Index Tower in DIFC, which many of you will be familiar with if you've been in and around that area. There are plenty of private companies that allow you to invest in real estate in the UAE. But of course, when it comes to the UAE, you do have to be even more careful when it comes to safety and regulation, because unfortunately in this part of the world, there have been a disproportionate amount of scams and more people have lost money here. This does seem to be changing though, and the government have brought in fantastic regulation around safety and protecting people. And all you have to do, as I said earlier, is please just check whether the companies that you're investing through are regulated and on the public register. Now, there may be many more companies in this space that can help you, but 3 that stand out to me are, firstly, our own investing platform, Curate Capital. Secondly, there's Smart Crowd. And thirdly, there's GetStake. Now, direct investing in the UAE is a little bit different to the rest of the world. The first thing that you need to consider is what type of property are you going to buy? So you can buy a villa, you can buy an apartment, or you can buy something that's off plan, that's not even built yet, and you can wait for that to be developed and then hand it off to you in several years' time. Most investors opt for an apartment simply because demand tends to be higher, and if you're renting it out, then the turnover of tenants can be quicker, so you're not left with long periods of time where the property is empty and not making you any money. But it is important that you fully understand the local dynamics before you do any direct property investing. Of course, if you live in the UAE, then that is a massive help because you'll have experienced it firsthand. Some of you might not appreciate, particularly if you don't live in the UAE, is that there are lots of different areas across the UAE which foreign nationals are unable to buy. These are restricted either for locals in some cases or citizens of the GCC more widely. For folks who have been in the UAE for a long time and are planning their long-term future here, they tend to want to buy villas, but because of the restrictions, they have to buy villas in the small number of areas where you can buy freehold villas. Therefore, from an investment perspective, buying villas can be somewhat restricted. You've got a small pool to choose from, and if you are buying a villa for an investment, it's unlikely that people are going to want to rent from you, particularly in the areas where there's freeholds available to buy. Either they'll be looking to buy themselves directly, or if they have to rent, they've got a much wider pool to choose from rather than choosing the villa that you've bought to rent out. Apartments, on the other hand, are much more freely available, and as I said earlier, the general trend is for apartments to fill up much quicker and to be able to fill up tenants much quicker once another tenant leaves. Location is really important when it comes to choosing which property you want to invest in. Also consider the fact that as well as the resale value within that location, you need to consider what types of tenants that location attracts. Simply put, look for locations where you'll get the types of tenants that you want and where demand is high. Lastly, you need to consider whether you're buying something that is already existing or whether you're buying something that's off plan. Buying something off plan comes with the benefit that you can pay in installments payments over a period of time. Whereas if you're buying something that's existing, you will need to stump up all of the cash immediately, either fully in cash or through an Islamic mortgage. If you're buying something off plan, there is the risk that the development stalls and that your apartment or your villa is not handed over. However, the government has introduced really good protections on this side. So nowadays, what you do is you put the money into an escrow account, and only once the apartment or the villa is handed over does the money get released to the developer. And this is a fantastic development in the UAE real estate market in order to ensure the safety and protection of all the parties involved. In the UAE, you have got much more availability of off-plan properties simply because it's growing at such a rapid rate. There are new developments happening all the time. You only need to step into a mall to be offered an off-plan property for investing. And of course, one of the big pulls as a Muslim investing in the UAE is that you've got the availability of Islamic mortgages. So if you're wanting to invest in property in the UAE, you've got much more options than, for example, the UK or the US when it comes to leverage. So in summary, as an expat, you do need to think through lots of different things. Firstly, whether you're investing locally, whether you're investing abroad, have consideration to all the different factors that we've discussed, the taxes, the currency, the final jurisdiction, and very importantly, I keep banging on about it, make sure that you go with trusted and regulated people so that you make sure that your investment is protected. And remember, there is not a one-size-fits-all approach. You have to look at your needs, your circumstances, and your goals. And sure, you can take advice from friends and family, but at the end of the day, you have to do what's right for you. I hope this video has helped. Please comment below with your experiences of buying property either abroad or in the UAE. I'd love to hear from you. Until the next time, Assalamu alaikum.